going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday and welcome to Trades Lady Happy Hour. This is your weekly installment. Each week, if you're new here to Trades Lady Happy Hour, each week I interview and chat with and hang out with and share a drink with another amazing woman in the trades. We've had all sorts of ladies from all over the trades, mostly automotive and kind of automotive adjacent. So body girls, mechanics, airplane technicians, helicopter technicians. And this week we have a first for Trades Lady Happy Hour. We're going to be meeting with a robotics technician. Her name is Emily Sabi. Excuse me. And she is not only a robotics engineer, she is also a trainer. And though she's young, she has done quite a bit in her career already. And I'm really excited to chat with her. She also came out and worked on the all-female build, which is how I met her. And had a ton of fun working with her. Hopefully she'll come back again soon. But I do have to take a quick moment and thank our sponsor who helps make this possible. Drive Time is a large network of automotive refinishers and used car sellers, and they employ a ton of technicians, body techs, painters. They're training up a lot of young kids into the trades and have kind of a cool apprenticeship program going and ways to bring people up within the industry. And we all know that we need lots more people in the trades. We've got a massive trade deficit going on in this country. So gotta love anybody who's taking initiative to train new people up. So I want to thank them for supporting women in the trades by supporting this podcast. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in every week and listening to me ramble and while we chat with amazing women. Hopefully you've checked out a few of them, if not all of them. If you've missed them or if you're new here, make sure you go check out all of the past ones on my IGTV tab. 90 some odd episodes there, which means 90 amazing women that you can hear their stories, hear how they got started, hear what they're passionate about and what their challenges have been. So definitely worth tuning in and checking it out, and hopefully you'll hang out through this podcast today. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Emily to join in. There we are. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. First of all, thank you for saying yes to my invitation to join here and hang out with me for a little bit. I feel like it's been forever since I've seen you already.
I know. I feel like it's been a long time.
It has been. Like what, a month? That's it?
Yeah.
But it feels like forever ago. We miss you. Come back.
I'm waiting. I'm going.
Awesome. So I was telling the fun folks at home a little bit about what you do and how absolutely amazing you are. Tell me, or tell them, introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about what you do currently, what your role is.
Currently, I actually just started a new job. But I am now a training coordinator, so I'm developing all trainings for robotic software. But previously, before that, I was in the industrial maintenance field, working on the robotic systems, maintaining them, fixing them. And then I got into the training aspect of it, and I started training the systems, and now I just fell in love with that. So I loved helping people and ended up staying in the training.
Nice. So is this a promotion since I saw you?
Yes.
Nice. You go, girl. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I love it. You are on fire. You're doing so much. And how old are you? Do you mind me asking?
I'm 25.
Isn't this crazy, guys? She's 25 years old. She's a baby and already doing so much with her career. It is, it's so inspiring. I know you and I talked about this a little bit when you were out. Like, I know you don't see yourself the way others see you, but it's so cool to see how many young women, I mean, you're so young and you've done so much and you have so much drive, and for you to be turning around and being able to teach people is just so phenomenal. Like the impact of that goes so far beyond you training people. It's like you're changing the way people perceive of women in your field. And that's a really incredible thing. So I hope you're very
Thank
proud
you.
of what you do.
Yeah, I try to be.
All right, so let's dig into history a little bit. How did this journey start for you? How did you find your way to robotics?
I've always loved working with my hands. I'm a daddy's girl, so I always worked in the garage with my dad. He's more of the like carpentry aspect of it, so I would do a lot of like carpentry work with him. He'd teach me how to use like those type of tools, and then he saw as I was getting older, like how interested I was in working with my hands. So, he's been my supporter since day one. So I believe it was like eighth grade, sometime in middle school. He got me one of those like little erector set thingies. So for Christmas, and I ended up building them. I got it the same day I built it. I started just going crazy with it, and I went to high school, and I was part of what they call the STEM Academy. Um, so I didn't know what I would even wanted to do. I was just in it. They were doing biomedical, agriculture, um, finance, and robotics was one of them. But everybody
Interesting.
was telling me to go into like the biomedical field because that's what all the girls do. And I was like, I don't know.
That's interesting. So tell me about the STEM Academy. I want to like pause there for a second because a lot of high schools don't have that sort of thing.
So I was very lucky because the high school I went to was brand new.
Oh,
I was the first like 4 year graduate basically. So
oh
my
wow.
class was the first class to go all 4 years. Um, but they were around me just the first high school to have the STEM Academy.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it was really cool to even be able to just experience that and be part of that. But they basically gave us an opportunity our first year as a freshman to get to know all of the biomedical, get to know agriculture, get to know the financing, and see what we wanted to do. So
Oh,
that
that's
way,
cool.
so that way, the last 3 years we could like focus on that one. So yeah, it was really cool.
That's incredible. Like in at high school age, right? Like I feel like there's so much talk about the fact that trade programs are going away. And yet I feel like I've spoken to a lot of women recently who had amazing programs in their high school and newer programs like yours popping up. Was it like a program where you went to like a regular like your regular high school classes and then did this in the afternoon, or was this the entirety of your high school career?
No, so freshman year is actually part of my elective class.
Okay.
And then the STEM class was the whole elective class where we focused on everything. And
Okay.
then sophomore through senior year, it was just a robotics class that I completely focused on as an elective. And then I had like a main core class of it as well in the same school.
Interesting. And how so cool that they had you do a sampling of everything. Because I feel like high school is a little young to necessarily be like, yes, this is what I
Yeah.
want to do when I grow up, unless you're like you and have just a clear a clear passion.
I honestly did not have a clear passion in the beginning. I'm going to tell you the truth. I wanted to be a professional soccer player.
Really?
I did. And then my teacher was like, I showed my STEM teacher. I was like, oh, look what I'm doing at home. He's like, we have the robotics program here. You should go check it out. So I checked it out, and then that's when I ended up actually like falling in love with it.
That's all. So you had a teacher, male or female teacher,
Male.
okay, and recognized in you that this would be a good fit for you.
Yes.
Yay. How cool is that? Yay to awesome male teachers out there who are willing to introduce women to non-traditional things. That's so cool. So he was seeing the stuff you were doing with your erector set and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep, I was just all the time at home when I was not a normal kid. Instead of going out and like partying, I was at home like building these little robots and just
I love it.
having fun with that.
That sounds totally normal. At least what normal should be. The weird folks are more fun anyway. It's cool. So you start out in the robotics program. Was it like instant love once you started?
Yes and no. I started out and I was kind of iffy because it was mostly boys. I was the only girl. So the boys there were really like hard to get along with because they didn't like that I was a girl coming in. And my teacher, which he was my mentor for a long time, I still go to him sometimes. He was pushing me to like just keep going and going. Like he made me the representative of the academy for the robotics and all of that. And the guys that were there before me didn't like that. So it was really hard at first. And I had to like really gain their trust and all of that.
So I mean, high school age is a tough age to be dealing with all of that. How did that show up? Like them not wanting you to be there?
I could just tell, when you get that vibe from people, like they don't want you there or they wouldn't include you and stuff. So I would just be in the corner, like doing my own thing.
Probably learning while they were off like playing.
Basically.
Fair enough. And how did you stay with it? Like you said that it was a little intimidating and dealing with that was a little bit rough. Did you think about giving it up at all?
I did at first. I honestly was like, maybe this isn't for me. But like I said, my mentor was there for me since day one, and he was showing me things. Like when I couldn't figure something out, I would sit with him, and I'd be so frustrated. And he's like, "All right, relax. Let's think about this. Let's think this through. Like, what do you need to do? What do we need? Like." And if I didn't know how to use a certain tool or something, he would teach me how to do it. So just having him there, it was a big just like motivation to keep going. And then my dad would always take me to all the competitions, and just being able to have like that support, I just kept going and ended up falling in love with it.
That's awesome. I can't stress to folks enough like how important that is, because I feel like if you hadn't had that mentor, if you didn't have a supportive dad like encouraging you and people encouraging you despite all of the barriers, like we would have lost you, right? Like the
Yeah.
industry would have lost you, robotics would have lost you, and it's so unfortunate that I think we lose a lot of people because of that. So guys at home, be good mentors, be good supporters of your little girls and the women you know in your life, because it makes a difference. Because look at how awesome and successful she is because of that, and because of all your hard work, of course.
Thank you.
So what kind of stuff do you do in robotics school and high school? Like, what is that? I've never done a robotics class at all. Like, what does that look like?
It's honestly the funnest thing ever. I know funnest is probably not a word, but it's
That's all right. We'll take it.
so cool. I loved it. We have what we call the first robotics. So this is an international competition.
Oh,
You can go from mini robotics all the way up to like the big robotic stuff. And basically every year you have different competition, and you look forward to basically sitting there and seeing what the competition is going to be from the start of the season. Basically it's just like any other sport except with robots. um and once the announcer says what the rules are, what the competition is going to be, you have, I forgot how many weeks, it's been so long, I think it's like 6 weeks or something like that, to build a robot from scratch.
okay.
So you sit there, you design it, you program it, you build it, all the way from the electronics to the mechanical aspects of it.
Okay. Is this at all like the competitions where you see like robots facing off and like killing each other and whichever
No.
one like no? Okay. that's,
No.
that's my experience.
It is not BattleBots. No, it's just like a sport, to be honest. Like my very last competition was basically these robots playing basketball.
Oh wow.
Kind of, but something
Interesting.
similar to it.
Interesting. So while you're in class, that's part of the focus is doing those competitions and gearing up for them.
That was my focus, just because that was my biggest thing in class. Like there's different the class itself focused more on like the Lego parts of it, but because I was a nerd, robotics was my thing. So I was in the robotics lab during lunchtime. I was in there during class. I was in there after school. Like that's, if I wasn't playing any sports, I was in the robotics lab.
Awesome. I have to ask this question because I don't know the answer as well, and it sounds like a different language. Daniel Oman asked, "Do you use PLC step ladder logic?"
I do know how to use PLC.
What is that?
So PLC is basically just a computer that makes the robots do what they have to do, and ladder logic is a type of programming that the PLCs use for it. So the ones I'm familiar with is Allen Bradley and Mitsubishi.
Okay. Yeah, you were just speaking a totally different language. So what about it made you so passionate to spend your lunches there, to spend all of your time in the lab?
Honestly, just being able to just like that was my comfort zone. I love troubleshooting. Like that's where I figured out that I love troubleshooting. I knew I loved working with my hands, but just being able to put what I thought in my mind to actually work and just being able to make something out of nothing is what just opened my eyes to just a different world.
I love it. Very cool. So you get out of high school. What's the path for you? Like, was that laid out for you when you were in high school? Like, what your options were once you graduate from a robotics high school program?
Yes and no. When I was in high school, there wasn't any real robotics programs when I graduated. So I kind of talked to my mentor and I asked him, he was just like, there's not anything there, but you can focus on it in the mechanical engineering field. Like, just go for your mechanical engineering degree. And once you get into, like, after you finish your core, you'll be getting into your robotics classes and you'll take some robotics classes there. But it wasn't really a main focus on robotics. And that's when everything started kind of starting to go downhill for me on like my first 3 years of college because I was just so bored. I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. It was more of the core classes.
And you pushed through because you wanted to get into robotics?
So I did and I didn't push through.
Okay.
I went through a tough time because like I said, it was hard for me. I didn't like that I wasn't working with my hands. I didn't like that I wasn't doing what I love to do. It was just a whole bunch of math, a whole bunch of science. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not what I felt like I wanted to do. It wasn't for me. So I talked to my dad about it and he was like, just do research. Go look for other schools. If that's what you need, go do it. So I spent like probably a month and a half looking for schools. And that's when I found the college in Ohio, University of Northwestern Ohio. It had an actual robotics program. And I told my parents about it, and my mom was just instantly like, no, you're not moving that far.
Oh.
And my dad was like, he was iffy about it. He did research on it, but he was like, you know what? Let's go check out the school. Let's go see it. So we literally, the weekend of Father's Day, I remember, took a drive all the way to Ohio. That night, we stayed in Ohio. The next morning, got up to go toward the school. I absolutely fell in love with the school. I fell in love with the robotics program there. Just being able to see like the robotic systems that they do, that they work on. And I told my dad, I was like, this is where I need to be. So that same day, we signed me up. I did what I had to do. My dad did what he needed to do to get me in this program, and then we drove back home.
That's amazing. I love it. That is so cool. And yay again to dad for supporting that. Was going to the robotics program versus the high school robotics program, was there a big difference in in the programs themselves? Like how was that? Did it prepare you for the college robotics?
It didn't. Just being able to think out of the box, I think, is the biggest thing that it prepared me for, and being able to get the like mechanical and electrical, somewhat of that experience. But going into the college robotics program, it was more of like a big boy job. So everything you see out there in the industrial maintenance field with the 6-axis robots that pick things up and drop them, and the hydraulics, pneumatics, all of that, the PLCs that I was just asked about. I was able to learn like the ins and outs of that stuff, and again, just being able to build something from nothing was what I was taught.
Yeah. How were your classmates? Was it different than in high school, or was it similar?
Um, the first year was rough because, or the first semester or session is what they called it, was rough. Probably the first two because I didn't know anybody. It was all guys again. I was the only girl, so they didn't really want to talk to me or want to pair up with me. So it was rough in that aspect until I was able to prove myself. And then after like the first 2 or 3 sessions, it was really easy because I was fortunate enough to stay with the same group for my whole college career.
Oh, wow. So that, I mean, that could have been like, that could have been good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Like once
Yeah.
you build the trust and the respect, it's awesome. But had that not, like, had they not come around, that could have been
Yeah, that could have been really bad.
awful. So how do you do that though? Like what was, I guess, what was your way to build the trust with them? How did you stay focused when things were overwhelming? Because I think this is something a lot of people struggle with, is like getting through that portion. And it's easy to say like, oh, you just earn their trust and you earn their respect. But like,
No, it's
how
not
did you
easy.
do that? It's not easy, right?
For me, the biggest thing is I don't want to say I like to prove them wrong, but it was more of a I'm gonna prove you wrong kind of thing and show them like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like if you need help, I can help you. And just being myself, like I've always been a tomboy, so I've always had guy friends my entire life, so it's easy for me to get along with guys. Um, my family jokes around I think like a guy or like I act like a guy sometimes, but it's just so easy for me to get along with them, so that aspect wasn't hard, but the actual working aspect, it was hard to gain their trust and to see that like I know what I'm doing. It took a couple times to again prove them wrong.
Did you have a way or an approach when you're working with somebody, or like they're not trusting you or they don't believe you can do it? Like how do you not get angry or respond or react to that?
Such a question. um it's hard, it really is. I think over the years I learned how to control that very well. I either would walk away or I would just wait till they mess something up, knowing that they were going to mess something up, and then be like, can I show you what I'm doing now or what I'm talking about now? And just wait for that. I mean, I still have a little bit of an attitude, which is probably not good, but the biggest one is just waiting for them to mess something up. So it's like, can I show you now?
Interesting. So you've kind of always been that teacher, like mindset a little
I
bit.
guess, yeah.
It's in you naturally. I love that. But I appreciate that kind of approach of like being calm, like not letting it affect you and just kind of waiting till there's that right moment where you can show that you do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's tough, but that's the best thing to do. I mean, it's really hard just to stay calm, but sometimes if you need to walk away, that's the best thing. I just laugh.
It's a good, I feel like laughter is a good approach. How large was the group that you were kind of going with through the years?
I believe there was like 15 of us,
Okay.
something like that. I don't really remember.
That's all right. But it's a relatively small group.
Yeah, it wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. It was just a regular just little group of us.
That's amazing. For how many years?
I was there for about 2.5 years.
Okay. It's a long time to spend with the same little group of 15. I'm impressed. That's interesting. Were there like multiple classes going on at the same time, or was that the entirety of the
No.
robotics program?
So our program was different. So the college we went to, or that I went to, sorry, that I went to is they had their tech side and then their business side, but it was still a university.
Okay.
So the tech side of it, the way the classes worked is they were Monday through Thursday, an hour of lecture, and then the 4 hours of hands-on.
Interesting.
So every 6 weeks you'd switch. For the robotics side of it, the first one was learning the introduction to robotics. Then the second one was learning the electronics, then the mechanical aspects, then a hydraulics class, and a pneumatics class. So every week would be a different specialty, or every
Interesting.
6 weeks would be a different specialty in that.
Okay. Interesting. Very cool. And then did you have a job like there for you when you graduated? Did you have to hunt for a job? How was that process?
Um, I did have to hunt, but the school made it easy because they held a lot of job fairs. So I actually started my first job while I was still in school as a equipment service technician. It's just a maintenance technician with Crown Equipment, the company that makes forklifts.
Okay.
So I worked in their facility as a maintenance tech, and I was literally the only girl with all these older guys. And I was asked, "What is a young girl like you doing here?" And I was like,
That's
"What is
my
that?"
favorite question. It's extra fun when they say it like, what's a pretty little thing like you doing here?
Yeah.
Full of condescending. So you're young, you're around a bunch of older guys who are suspicious at best, apprehensive about you being there, and you're still in school at the time. So
Yes.
talk to me about that experience and how that went down.
That was really hard because I was dealing with work in school. So I'd go to school from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then I'd work the morning shift. Um,
Oh, wow.
and if it wasn't something at work, it was something at school dealing with just a headache of just nonsense sometimes.
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting thing. I feel like it's hard to communicate what that's like. Like, even if it's nothing egregious, even if it's nothing like majorly, sexual harassment or, abusive kind of work situations, like just being around that unwelcome feeling that many hours out of the day, did it ever beat you down between
It
school
did.
and work?
It did. 100% it did. There was times where I just wanted to go home. Like I didn't want to be there anymore. I'm from Florida, so being in Ohio is like I have my family. I'm a big family person, my nieces, and just being homesick to just feeling like I wasn't good enough was very hard.
what what made you stay with it?
The love I had for it, being able to prove to people like I know what I'm doing, and just I guess you could say like adrenaline rush, or just the high I get from being able to fix something on my own.
And that's what carried you through.
Yeah.
Were there particular folks? I mean, did you have any good mentors in college and folks that were supportive, like your high school mentor was?
I didn't have any specific teachers that were like my mentor in high school. I still had my mentor from high school, so when I did have something, like if I had an issue or I couldn't figure something out, I would text him and be like, "Hey, can you help me with this really quick?" And he would help me. I did have one teacher that was pushing for me the whole time, but he wasn't anything like the high school mentor I've always had.
That's awesome. Excuse me. Um, so you're working as a maintenance tech. How long were you there?
I was there for 6 months before I graduated, and then I became a robotic engineer with a company called FCC Adams in Indiana.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And what did they do, and what were you doing for them?
It was the same thing. It was a industrial maintenance, six axis robot, basic industrial robotics.
I love that you
It's kind
say
of
like it's super basic. I'm like, I don't even know what a six axis robotic is.
hard to explain without like showing it. but
Amazing.
I worked as like an actual engineer there, so it was kind of cool working with other engineers and being able to redesign the systems if they were broken, or like try and troubleshoot the bigger problems instead of just maintaining and fixing and doing the preventative maintenance.
So so your day to day, you're dealing with the problems that are arising. Is that like trying to figure out why something's failing? Am I understanding correctly, or what
Yes,
does that look like day to
so
day?
I was not only maintenance, so if something broke down, like an assembly line basically, but it's an assembly line with robotic systems. If something broke down, I had to fix it. But then after fixing it, I had to figure out, okay, why does this keep breaking down? How many times does it keep breaking down? Is this a constant issue? What can we do to redesign it? What can we do to fix it? Is it something in the program? Is it something mechanical and stuff like that?
That's incredible. And you were in your what, early 20s at this point? Very early
Um,
20s?
I was about 22 years old, yes.
Wow. Interesting. It's so impressive to me. I'm in awe of you, and I think it's just so incredible. There was a story that you shared when you were out working on the build. Was this at that shop, or was
No,
that
this
another
was
place
at
with a
this previous job that I just left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Do you mind telling that story?
I can tell the story.
Okay.
So I got hired on with this company called Ocado. They're UK based company, and it was literally when COVID was happening. So I was supposed to be sent to the UK to get training because that's the only place that this company has had any experience before coming to the US. So where I worked was the first time in the US, but the borders closed. So I worked from home for about 3.5 months, and then we were working from a trailer, and we had to put literally commission this brand new site. So these robots were coming in, we had to make sure they were working, but I was the only maintenance engineer at the time.
Oh, wow.
So I had no idea what I was doing. I had no training on it. I wanted to learn more. Me being me, I just wanted to learn more. um, I just wanted to dig into it and just take it apart, but I asked about it and they were like, well, we're not supposed to do that. So one of the guys gave me the go ahead, and I'm not sure if he was even in charge, but I got the go ahead, so I just started doing it. So I started taking it apart. It took me about maybe 2 days to take this thing apart fully to the just the frame of it, and it took me another about 2 days to put it back together, and then about a day and a half to reprogram, or not reprogram it, but use the program to make sure that it's working good and there's nothing wrong with it and fix it up.
It's so that's so awesome. Like I wanted her to tell this story because it's just such like there's so much in that. Like if nobody's willing to teach you, if you don't have an opportunity to go to training, right? Whatever the case is, or you're at home and you're a student and you want to learn more of whatever, like just take it apart and put it back together again. Like
Just make sure it works.
yeah, the taking apart's the easy part. It's the going back together that's
basically.
and you
Luckily,
had
it's
like no
still
instruction
running.
manual for this, right?
No instruction manual. I just took it apart, electrical, mechanical parts of it, took everything apart and put everything down. I had this one room in the trailer just filled with robot parts, and I had to fake putting them back together. I forgot to take some pictures of them, so I forgot where they went, so that was a little hard.
That always makes it harder. How did the folks that you were working with react to this? Like,
They thought it was amazing. They were just like, whoa, like she's really doing this. They still talk about it to this day.
I love it. They're like, this crazy chick. That is awesome. I'm assuming none of them like have ever done anything like that, like completely tear it down.
Well, I was the only maintenance engineer in a
Okay.
room filled with managers.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely left a big impression on them, apparently. And that's the place where you started getting into the teaching side of things, right?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So because I was able to learn like the ins and outs on my own, as new employees started coming in, they wanted me to help in the aspect of helping them learn this stuff. And they made their like little own bot school is what they called it. They're like, hey Emily, do you want to help? And the guy that was in charge of it ended up having to go to a different project and help with something else. And they were like, okay, are you ready to teach on your own?
Uh-oh.
And I was just
I lost you for a
yeah.
second there. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
I'm back. Yes, I can hear you now. I'm going to plug in my phone really quickly because it just yelled at me.
You're good.
All right. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
So,
Go ahead.
I don't know where I
starting teaching, put you in charge, like threw you into teaching right
yeah.
off the bat.
So they just threw me in charge because they were like, "Hey, you're ready to go on your own, right? You've taught two, or you've helped teach two already." And I was like,
Uh,
"Yeah, I guess." That I guess that's like the good thing about me is I'm up for anything. So unless it's something that's gonna kill me, I'm always just like, "Yeah, let's go for it.
I
Whatever,
mean, I feel
let's
like
do
that's a really
it."
good life policy. If it's not going to kill me, I'll try it. I like it.
But that's basically how I got into it. And on top of the maintenancing part, I was teaching new employees, and the company ended up creating their own training program, and I was the first one they were interested in, and I ended up taking that role.
So gross. So you're like the first engineer in the United States for this company, and then you're totally taking over and creating this teaching and training program. Like
Yeah,
serious boss life right there.
I guess.
Modest. She's really modest. But seriously, y'all, like how cool is she? It's really impressive. All right, how has your family been about this? Dad was supportive at the beginning. Is he still really supportive now? Like how do they
My
feel about this
dad,
path?
my dad has always been a big supporter. He's still a guy, so sometimes it's hard. Like if I'm using a tool, he'll be like, "Oh, you're not using that right." So he's still a guy in that aspect, and I'm just like, "Dad, I know what I'm doing." But he definitely is a big supporter. And when it comes to electrical stuff, he's like, "Oh, Emily knows what she's doing. I should just go ask her." Um,
That's gotta
the
feel
rest,
good.
yeah, that feels really good when he does that. The rest of my family is definitely, like I said, I'm a family person, so they support me. They support me in everything I do, and they're proud of me. But it's not normal, I guess you could say. Um, I'm not the regular girly girl that my sisters are used to and that my mom's used to. So they're not really interested in what I do, but they're supportive of what I do. So it's hard, but I'm happy that I'm still able to get their support from
Yeah, absolutely. When I'm gonna try not to die here. I'm sorry.
it.
I don't know what's going on. Could be the fact that I'm allergic to cats and I have like 12 of them in my house right now. Not actually, I don't actually have 12 cats. Nobody think I'm a crazy cat lady. Um, what what is that? How has that been for you and has it affected you being the odd duck in your family?
um, I would say it's made a big impact on me. Um, it definitely made me stronger and made me want to work harder to show them, like, look, I can do this because um, all I've heard was, oh, that's a guy thing. That's a guy thing. That's a guy thing. And I know they support me and I know they love me, but just being able to show them, like, hey, like, it's not just for guys. I'm able to do it too. And being able to get, like, sometimes when they need something, they're like, hey, Emily, can you help me with this? Because little by little, I'm showing them, like, I know what I'm doing. This is not just for guys. This could be for anybody. But it's still rough sometimes just because my sisters are more of the traditional girly girls and then there's me.
Do you get along with them?
Oh yeah, I love my sisters. My sisters are like my best friends. I get along with them. I fight with them like normal sister. We're
Yeah.
just different, 100% different. And I, like I said, I love that they support me, but they're just not interested in what I do. So that's a little hard sometimes because I have to fall back on more on their interest than mine sometimes.
In conversation and family events, you mean?
Yeah,
Do they understand what you do?
no,
No.
no, not at all. I don't think we've ever talked about anything that I do. They just know that I work on robots.
And that's not like crazy cool to them.
I mean, yeah, they say that like I'm a genius, and I try not to. I don't think I'm a genius, but I don't know.
Well, I'm glad that they're supportive, although I'm sure that there's a piece of frustration there. Like I feel like, I experienced a little bit of this coming up, that kind of feeling of kind of being in between worlds, right? Like
Yeah,
family and friends, like they may be supportive, they may love you, but they don't really understand why you're doing what you're doing, and they don't really get like that part of you. And then on the work side, like they get that part of you, but they don't understand why you're doing it as a girl, and you're always a little bit on the outside. There's an isolation feeling, I feel like. Is that, did you experience, do you experience that?
100%, yeah. It's hard just because sometimes like I want to talk about it, but they don't really understand, and it seems like they're not interested. So I just kind of just throw it on the back burner and just leave it as is. But it's I get it's hard for them because to them they grew up, or we all grew up together, but they grew up more on like the girly side of stuff. So they don't really understand anything that I do because it's for boys. And I mean, we've always joked around and we always said like, "Oh, I'm the brother," but it's definitely hard because I sometimes I wish that I could share that interest, but it's also cool just being different sometimes.
Does that get to you ever? Like you think like a man, you know, you act like a man, you are the brother, like you're still a woman, right? Like it may not be
Yeah,
the traditional girly girl stereotype, right? But you're
it's
still feminine, you're still a woman.
yeah, it still definitely gets to me. I mean, it's not just family that I hear it from; it's
Yeah.
everybody that I hear it from. So
Yeah.
it definitely is hard. I've learned how to control like that emotion, so it doesn't bother me anymore. Now I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like I really don't care if that's what you want. Like I just remind myself where I am today and how successful I am, so I don't let people really bother me. Um, family aspect of it, I know they're just joking, so I'm just like whatever. At first it was hard because it's like, do they really think that about me? But I know it's just because we have our differences in that, in just thinking in general. So I I know that they're not trying to say it, but it still gets to me.
I can't wait till the day when it's not a man's job or a
Yeah.
woman's job and it's just a job. Like when it's not being a tomboy and it's just a different way of being, like it's just who you are, right? Like
Yes. I can't wait for that day
hopefully in our lifetime, hopefully.
either.
So is your work environment, well, I guess you just left the place, so new place, don't really know yet. But are you finding, like, are you still the only girl most of the time, or only woman, I should say?
Um, so far I have been the only real um women that I've encountered. I mean, I've encountered some in this last job, but the only women I've encountered were like HR. So, yes and no. But with what I do, I've encountered probably a handful of women that I've trained in this last job.
Oh, wow. So you're seeing more women coming into the field?
I'm seeing a little bit more and more women coming into the field. When I first started compared to these last couple of months, like these last couple of months, I think I've trained 4 girls,
Wow.
and that's the most girls I've ever trained
That's
before.
exciting.
Yeah, it was really. The first thing I said to them, I was like, "Wow, I'm so happy that I'm not the only female."
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool to see in such a short amount of time that you're seeing that much of a change in the gender makeup of who's there.
I
So
thought it was crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Do you know other, aside from the ones you're training, do you know other female robotics engineers? Like not necessarily where you work, but like in the world, in the wild.
No, I don't. I do not.
Have you found people, whether in robotics or not, like do you have folks that like you feel kind of get all of you or
Yes, 100%. My best friend, we met in college. She is a diesel technician and she owns her own shop. You know her.
yeah.
Um,
And for anybody who doesn't know her, it's Victoria Carl, and she was one of my former interviewees. You can go back and watch her interview. And yes, the two of them came out together, and it was so much fun. But talk about that. Sorry to interrupt.
no, you're good. But just going to college and just, I didn't think I was gonna meet any females. And she was my roommate. It was a crazy story how we met, but we ended up becoming really best friend or really good friends. We're still best friends to this day. We see each other every now and then. We live so far away, but we make it to where we still see each other. And we when it comes to like work, we just get it. We know like when a guy's bothering us or something like that, we're able to text each other and we're like, "Hey, this happened," like, "Oh, he's such an a-hole, this and that." And we just kind of just pep talk each other to keep us going and motivate each other.
Yeah. I feel like that's again something that's really hard to explain to people, like why that's so important. And that weird connection that happens when you meet another woman who's used to being the only as well, and that like unspoken, like understanding, shared experience, whether it's the same field or not, and how important that is to have.
It's extremely important. Like when I know I'm feeling just a certain way, like some guy or just anybody told me something that is making me feel like I shouldn't be doing this, we will text each other and just be like, "Hey, he's being an a-hole. Like, what do I do? What do I say?" And she'll give me that motivation, and I'll do the same for her. And I've been lucky enough too. My boyfriend, I met him in college, and he's a diesel tech, and he's been really good supporting me in everything I do. And he helps me, or he lets me help him work on his trucks and cars, even if I break them.
And so even though you don't work on cars professionally, I know like we're in this particular trades lady happy hour, we're straying a little bit from the formula of mostly working with women in automotive, but I think it's worth it because you're such a badass. And you actually have like you work on cars periodically, but you also one of your robotics jobs was with a car company, wasn't it?
It was the one where I first became a robotic engineer. It was the company made clutches for Ford and GM.
And so were they the robots that build the clutches? Is that
Hmm.
that's so
They build the clutches from basically nothing to clutch.
very cool. So you fix the robots that build the parts that techs are putting on vehicles.
Hmm.
See, she's a boss. I love it. Um, so this new job, we haven't like talked about it, and I don't know anything about it because this is new since I saw you. So tell me how this came about.
So I was a trainer previously in this last job that I was in. And I just wanted more. I felt like I needed more because I started to feel stuck. And I love training. The biggest thing for me is I love giving people hope. I
Mm.
I was that new employee that came in feeling hopeless, like I didn't know what I was doing. And to be able to give those new employees a little bit of hope that they know what they're doing, they're able to do it, that was my biggest motivation as a trainer. And being able to like just create trainings and create documents. And it was kind of a troubleshooting in a way for me. Like the way I just was able to think out of the box and all of that. So I just wanted more. And I found a new job as a training coordinator for robotic software, and I'm just going to be able to focus more on the developing and training other people how to be a trainer.
Oh, so you're training trainers.
Yes, and I'm also training. I believe I'm training the software as well.
Nice. So when did this happen? Like brand new?
This is brand new. I start next Monday.
Oh my gosh, so you haven't even started yet.
No.
This is so exciting. I love it. And God, I love what you just said about teaching and why you love it, like giving people hope. That's
Yeah.
that's such a
I
beautiful sentiment.
I love just helping people. Um I feel like I have a big heart. I hope other people think the same thing. But I feel like I have a big heart. My biggest thing, I just love helping people in whatever way possible. And just being able to give people that hope, whether it's at work, whether it's just in life in general, and just being there for somebody I feel like can go a long way, because throughout my life, that's what made me get to where I am today. Whether it was my dad, whether it was my family, my mentor, whoever it was, just that little bit of hope, that little bit of motivation from every single person that I've encountered in my life and that have made a big impact got me to where I am today. So being able to do that for somebody else is just something huge for me.
That's it's incredible, and the way you word it is perfect. I think that is what teachers should be doing, right? But that emphasis for you on that is such an awesome thing. And I think of this often. I actually just saw my mom pop on, which is really funny because I was about to say something about her. Sorry, Mom. No, it's a good thing though. I remember her telling me about a study like way back in the day because she worked with like childhood development stuff, and it was about how the single most important factor in a child's success in life is having just one person who believes in them, and whether that's a parent or a friend or a teacher or a neighbor or a coach or whatever, like just one person in their life that gives them hope, like you said, believes in them and says like, yeah, you can do it, and that makes all the difference in the world. And now
Yeah,
you're that person for other people.
I try to be. I really do try to be. I try to make it for everybody. I mean, the biggest thing for me too was I'm not a school person. I do not like school. I know I went to school, but I don't like it. So
That's okay.
being able to be a trainer and like show people they can learn without actually learning, I guess you could say, without like that regular
Without it feeling like
school.
school,
Yeah,
right?
that was that's how I was able to teach and get through to a lot of people and just break it down to like just the simplest things to where I was able to explain. I mean, my boyfriend calls me crazy all the time, but the biggest thing I remember what he taught me, he had to redo his I think it was his carb or something in his four-wheeler. And he was explaining to me how it worked, and I was like, "Oh, like a toilet plunger." And he was like, yeah, yeah, like yeah. But I know that's how my brain works. So I'm like, okay, if that's how my brain works, I can't be the only crazy person. There has to be other people here. Not everybody thinks the same. Let
Yeah.
me help others so they know like they they're not crazy. They're not by themselves. They can learn this. It doesn't have to be that traditional learning style.
I love the irony that you didn't like school and now you're a teacher and a trainer. And yet I think it's such a beautiful come around because you're right. Like, your experience and feeling like, oh, you learn a different way and therefore there's something wrong with you or you're different or whatever. Like, I feel like we try to, like, if you're not the stereotypical type of intelligence as a kid, then you're looked at differently and you're
Yeah.
told that there's something wrong with you. And like, it's just a different kind of smarts, right? Like,
Yeah.
your brain is making connections that other people's don't, and it's just different, right? But you
Yeah.
can take that now and be able to communicate with other people who've probably felt the same way in their lives.
And it's honestly incredible because I get in every age range, anywhere from I've the youngest person I've taught was like 21, the oldest person I've taught was like 60 years old. So being able to get to people whether they're 20 or 60 was just amazing for me. And it was just like that sense of like I need to keep going. I like the fact that I was able to show this person that they thought that something so hard they couldn't learn and give them that hope like yes, I know what I'm doing, I can do this, I can go out on my own. It was just amazing for me.
Was it mostly people who were just coming into the field?
It was a little bit of everything. The systems that I worked on in the previous company, they were just like any other ordinary robotic system if you were in the field, but they were also different because the company that was from the UK tried to be as unique as possible, so they made their own systems.
Of course.
Um, so whether you were new to it or not new to it, it was still new.
Okay. So I'm curious with the older folks that you were training. I'm assuming the older ones were more likely the ones that had experience elsewhere. So having had experience elsewhere and then coming in and learning a new thing, were they coming in with like the perspective of like, oh, I already know this?
Oh, 100%. Especially seeing me up there. Seeing me up there and seeing this little girl trying to teach them something, they were just like, no, I've been doing this for 20 years and I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, all right, no problem.
So how did you, I mean, I hear that, right? Like, okay, no problem. Sure. How did you handle them? How did you get folks that are like, who is this little punk little girl trying to teach me something? How do you handle that?
Again, it just comes down to gaining their trust and kind of proving them wrong in a way. So I would make things as simple as possible for those that were new, but go into the technical terms right after it. So I simplify it for people that were new and for those people that were like, oh, I already know what I'm doing. This girl has no idea what she's talking about. She hasn't even been working for as long as I've been alive.
Right.
I've heard that so many times. But I go so far into the technical aspects, and they like I've I think that just amazes them, and that just brings attention to them that like, okay, she knows what she's doing. Maybe I should listen. And then the biggest part was when they got into the computer aspects of it, and they had no idea what they were doing, so they relied on me.
Right. Leave it to exposing them to something that they have no idea what they're talking about. So to kind of
Yes.
check it. Did you have any particular like situations that like really stood out to you as challenges throughout your career, like major challenges that you've had to deal with?
Um, I guess as a trainer, the biggest one was people trying to teach above me, like
Mm.
trying to. As I was talking, they would start talking, and I'd tell them like, hey, dude, if you want to teach, go ahead and teach. There was one time where I was so irritated with this kid that I literally just, well, I say kid, but he was older than me, but I just sat down and I was like, if you want to teach the class, then be my guest, go ahead. And I that just brought like that just made him just like take a step back and be like, whoa, like did she really just talk to me like that? And I think that's the biggest thing is people think that just because I'm a little girl, I'm not gonna stick up for myself. And throughout my whole life, that's the biggest thing that I've had to deal with is guys trying to walk all over me or push me over, basically telling me, hey, I'm doing it, don't worry. But just being able to learn how to stand up for myself and tell them to get out the way was the biggest struggle that I've dealt with.
Was that always in you? Like, did you just grow up with that kind of like, I don't want to say fighter because it's not a fighting thing. You're just driven. Did you always have that?
I don't know. I don't know. I would love to say yes, but I don't know, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. I'm always curious, like if it's something that comes like later in life, if it's a thing that you kind of always
I
had that push.
I think, I mean, everybody has their own struggles and their own things that they go through in life and that help them grow up. And I think that everything that I've experienced in my life, good, bad, whatever it was, built me to where I am and who I am. And I've I guess I've always been a fighter because I've always wanted to like prove my point and show people like, hey, I know what I'm doing. So I guess in a way you could say I'm a fighter, but I think what got me to this mentality where I am today is just growing up in the environment I was in, like I said, the good, the bad, whatever it was, and just humbling myself.
Great perspective. Um, I just looked at the clock and I see that we are like our hour is done, and I feel like there's so much more to talk about. We're gonna go a few minutes over if that's okay with you, because I have at least one more question I want to ask you.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So, if you get the opportunity or had the opportunity to speak to either the younger you or another young person out there who maybe wants to be able to do what you're doing, who's hearing this and is like, oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing. How do I get there? What do I do? What are your words of inspiration to them?
Um, I guess just like I tell my nieces all the time is don't let people tell you no. I listen to your parents. I mean, if they tell you what to do, then you gotta listen to them. But when it comes to you, don't let people tell you no. Don't let people try and walk all over you because the only person that knows what's best for you is you. I mean, as a kid, your parents obviously know what's best for you, but as you get older and you start learning all these new things and what you like, don't let people tell you that you can't do it. Um, don't listen to those people telling you you can't. Listen to all those people telling you you can. Listen to everybody that's motivating you, because every time you listen to that one person that says you can't, is it means 10 times more than the person that tells you you can. Because you can have one person or three people telling you you can, and that one person telling you you can't. And if you listen to that one, it's going to be like 10 people telling you you can't, not one. So forget the people that say you can't, forget the people that say you're not able to, that you're not big enough, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, whatever it is that you're doing. Just listen to all your motivators, listen to all the people that support you, and listen to you.
Perfectly, perfectly said. And a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for saying yes to this, for joining me. And I'm so excited for you and your new job. I can't wait to hear all about it. I know that you are going to be phenomenal at it with your attitude and just who you are. Your beingness. You're an incredible woman, and I think you're gonna do phenomenal. So congratulations. And everybody who's watching, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out for this last hour. Make sure you go give her a follow and give her some love and support. And more importantly, like, go out into your lives at home and at your work, and remember her words, right? Like, giving people hope and being there for them and being the most supportive ally you can be to women, but not just women, to anybody new coming into the industry, to be that person who makes a difference in their lives, because that's how we make a difference in the industry. So I thank you guys for tuning in. I thank you for hanging out with me. Make sure you come back next week to meet another incredible tradeswoman. Make sure you go check out my IGTV tab to meet all of the women who have been on throughout the last year or so, over a year. And again, thank you to my sponsor who allows this to continue happening, and the work that they're doing to help bring up more technicians in the industry and just to support women in the trade. So big thank you to them. Big thank you to you guys at home. Huge thank you to you, Emily. You're a serious rock star, and I hope you're starting to believe that you're a total badass.
Victoria reminds me.
Good. We need to keep reminding you.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much for giving me the opportunity to be on.
Absolutely. I think it's important for people to hear your perspective, and I'm really grateful that you said yes. So everyone, have a fantastic rest of your evening. Be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Good night.
Bye.